I don't remember any hardships because my mom was always positive. What can I be grateful for? How can I look into the future to create a better future? We're getting married. That's when Mimi is like, hey, I need hair extensions for the wedding. I'm like, what are hair extensions? And she showed me a YouTube video. And that's for me, that's when the whole thing clicked. We made $1 million in our first year. A lot of people, they're not willing to put in the work for that decade.
I'm obviously on social media quite a bit, and I'm seeing all of these kind of business opportunities being presented to youth. It's created this, I think, expectation that, you can turn around tomorrow and create something and it's going to start just cash flowing hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars every month. Was the YouTube channel the sole source of traffic? Hello and welcome back to Rise Podcast, life stories of accomplished individuals. The premise of this podcast, as always, is to almost use my guests as human case studies to understand what is it that drives success, what are the traits, what are the qualities, what are the challenges that they have to overcome. Today we have Alex Ikonn. Alex, hello.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here. Alex and I don't need to be so formal. Alex and I are actually friends. We've known each other for a few years now. Alex, I think, if I'm not mistaken, you and I met back in, I believe it was 2019. It was the first time we met actually was in London when Valeria and I came to town, and you and Mimi had Valeria on your podcast.
Yes, that was great.
That was a lot of fun. You invited us to your, what do you call it in London? A flat? I guess you invited us to your flat. So we came to your flat, and you guys had the episode with Valeria, and it was, I have to say, I was trying to contain myself at the moment, but I was so proud of Valeria for the fact that you and Mimi had interest in interviewing her, and you guys were so nice and you were so gracious. You invited us into your home. You made us an awesome dinner. We had such a good time. And I really enjoyed that. And that was a really cool episode.
Oh, definitely. So if anybody wants to listen to those episodes on the icons, which has been like paused, but nevertheless, it's a great episode. And Valeria always gives incredible nuggets of wisdom.
Are you going to be picking that back up?
Well, we in a way restarted focusing more on the Intelligent Change podcast. So we just launched that.
Yes.
So we'd love to have Valeria back on the Intelligent Change podcast once that rolls around.
I think I can pull a few strings there and I can get that done.
Yeah, but we do it in person, so you have to come back to London.
I was about to say. So we actually just spent some time together. Valeria and myself and the kids. We were in London for a week's vacation, and we actually spent good time together with the kids. We hung out. You took us to that block party for the kids, not too far from where you live.
Exactly.
In London. That was an experience.
Yeah, it was a little rainy.
That was really cool.
You had to get the London experience with some rain.
Well, I mean, we definitely got the London experience. Our middle kid, Ben, got the Union Jack painted all over his face, and he was running around the neighborhood. That was a lot of fun. And you know what? Alex and I caught up, and we talked mostly about entrepreneurialism. I'm going to get into kind of Alex's accolades and some of the things that he's accomplished in a bit. But again, because we're buddies, I'm just kind of using this time to catch up. But one of the things that I really enjoyed, that I really picked up with Alex on this last trip, and it's interesting though, because it doesn't matter how old you are, it doesn't matter how many years of experience you have. You always learn something from talking to like-minded people, from talking to experienced people, talking to accomplished people. And, Alex and I were talking about everything, and you made a statement saying, it's so important to continue learning. Like that is, I feel, such a kind of a main thesis in your life since I've known you. You're this like perpetual student, and you're always learning.
Yeah, for sure. That's my even status on WhatsApp is just always learning, a smiley face. And I think for me, I was actually never a good student. So I was a fairly poor student in school. And my learning really began once I graduated university. And once I've learned that there's so many incredible people in the world, like us, here on this podcast, I think you yourself doing this, or people listening who want to, number one, share their wisdom and the things they've learned on their journey with somebody else. And I was like, why not? Why wouldn't you want to absorb the lessons that other people have learned along their way and sharing with you? I think it's just incredible. And the reason why we are all here as humans is literally because we're standing on the shoulders of giants and the people who come before us.
That's, I never heard it put that way. That's again, you hear things that kind of change your perspective. It's like you're fine tuning your perspective as you go. I'd like to go through your accolades. I'd like to go through some of your history, and I want the listeners to understand kind of your journey, and then I want to jump right into kind of your early life and where all of this started. So let's just jump into it. So and I got a lot of this from your site. I got a lot of this about just stuff that I know about you personally, and of course from your Instagram and your social media. So what started as a $20,000 investment, and this is really impressive. What started as a $20,000 investment from an actual personal line of credit. So this wasn't even cash that you had, to my understanding. This is something that you borrowed from a line of credit. You created a company called Luxy Hair, which Luxy Hair, for those of you who don't know, people like me, of course, who don't have hair. For those of you who don't know, Luxy Hair has, I'm not sure where Luxy Hair is right now, but at the time, at its peak, I guess, Alex, when you and Mimi had co-founded it and were operating it, you had 250,000 customers in 165 countries. You grew largely from social media with a YouTube channel with almost 3 million subscribers. So for those of you who kind of aren't in this industry, to grow a channel, to grow anything on social media, as Alex knows, as I know, it's very difficult. It's very challenging. It's a long-term commitment. But they grew that base of subscribers, which they then turned into customers. 3 million subscribers, 500 million views. So the video production that has to happen on something like that it's beyond comprehension what has to happen. And to grow an audience like that, to then use that as a top of funnel to push that into customers to create this business is remarkable. And Luxy Hair grew to one of the largest hair related channels in the world in late 2018. And I'm reading from your bio, Alex and Mimi successfully exited from this business when it was acquired by Beauty Industry Group. So I'm assuming that's like a private equity kind of fund in the space. So congratulations on that. I mean, that was 5 years ago, and that obviously was something meaningful. And people in the industry, in both the media industry and in the beauty industry, everybody knew about this. So that's just, that in itself is incredible. Starting from this $20,000 essentially loan, super risky situation with you and Mimi, and you guys created this. You created massive value and were able to have an exit. You also are investors. There's a couple of companies that I know of, and I'm sure it's much more than this. Calm, which is a very popular, I guess you would call it a meditation app. I'm not sure if you would call it that.
Mindfulness app.
Mindfulness app. So you were one of the early investors, and I remember seeing a post of yours that you had something like a 200x return or something like that. So congratulations on that too. And then there's that I know of personally. I know that you were an investor in Curlsmith, which I believe sold about a year and a half ago. Which we're going to talk about your retreat in a second, but you introduced me to the founder there, and that was a very interesting story. And so you're an early investor there. I'm sure there's many more. Intelligent Change, which it's interesting. Whenever I speak with somebody and I tell them that you and I are friends, and all of us are friends, and when they ask me, the biggest thing that you're known for, I think today, outside of your previous projects, is the product, is the 5-Minute Journal. So the 5-Minute Journal has sold 1.7 million copies around the world, and then you had a follow-up product, I guess, to that, which is your productivity planner, which is currently up to 300,000 copies sold globally. And then your company that kind of facilitates that product is Intelligent Change. When I look at Intelligent Change, to me, Intelligent Change it's such an intentional e-commerce brand, and you've really taken the the product industry and you've made it so, I don't know, kind of, I'm kind of on a bit of a loss for words, but you've made it so intentional, and there's so much purpose in what you do, in terms of you're not just making like another type of, I don't know, tonic or drink or anything like that. You're actually affecting very, very positive change. And then this is parlayed into something that Valeria and I experienced ourselves a few months ago, which I'm still kind of, reeling from, because I kind of went in with I didn't come in with like little expectations. I just came in with no expectations. And Alex and Mimi were kind enough to invite us to the Intelligent Change Summit, right? It's called the Intelligent Change.
Yeah, correct.
No, was that what it's called? Yeah, the Intelligent Change Summit. So Valeria and I went in there. It was at the Six Senses in Ibiza, and it was honestly, like, I get goosebumps even thinking about it. It was so life-changing. Every moment felt curated. Like, everything that was there were so many just high-value speakers, and it was just incredible. It was incredible the way you pulled it off. It was still like, it was the first one, and it felt so intimate and so special. And I'm really hoping we'll get an invite to the next one.
For sure.
So yeah, I mean, it's a bit of a long list that I'm, when I talk about your accolades, Alex, because I've known you for as long as I have, and I've been following your work. So that's Alex Ikonn. And, of course, Alex, when you think of Alex Ikonn, it's synonymous with Mimi Ikonn, which, Alex's partner, Alex's wife, and they've done all of this together. So Alex, let's jump back. I want to kind of jump back. And again, I want to remind you kind of the premise of this podcast, and you can share as much or as little as you like. We can get as personal as you like, or not personal. This is a really casual conversation. I literally have no questions planned out, but to me, I want to extract as much value from you so I can convey this to the audience, rather than a monologue of, hey, you got to work hard and you got to do all this. I really want to dig into this and understand kind of where you come from. So let's go back to your early life. Where were you born?
Yeah, I was born in Russia, and I immigrated to Canada when I was 9 years old. So I guess
where in Russia?
Orenburg. It's like near Kazakhstan, so where Borat lives.
Wow.
Near there.
Okay.
And so when I was coming to Canada, I thought we were moving to the U.S. I didn't know what Canada was. I thought was this Canadian flag? Are we in some different state? But it was Canada nevertheless. And so I'm really grateful to that my parents made that choice to move to Canada, and so much I think of our success is definitely because of being able to be in that country. So that was really kind of the start and the beginning of the journey.
Okay, so growing up in Orenburg, I've heard of it. I won't say I'm familiar with it, but I've heard of it.
Yeah.
And Orenburg in Russia, growing up, in terms of, I feel like I know the answer, because you were, if your age isn't a secret, what year were you born in? I'm thinking in the 80s.
1987.
87. Yeah. So, in 87, you were born, it was still Soviet Union. So it was still kind of communist USSR. And you came later. I left Ukraine, which was USSR, when I was 2. So I don't really have as much, it didn't really influence me. It didn't influence me as much culturally, except being raised by parents, which are the product of that. But for you actually spent meaningful time there, because I'm sure you remember your early life before you were 9. What was that like? Did you feel that was a struggle?
No, not at all. I think the beautiful thing about childhood is, I think there's a movie called The Beautiful Life about the Holocaust. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie, but it just kind of speaks about, as they're undergoing, a very hard time. But if the parent was like playing, trying to make the situation for the child seem like it was very fun, and they're playing games, the child doesn't even know. Like, you can make fun out of a very hard situation. It was a beautiful movie. I think he won an Oscar for that role as well. What I'm trying to say is, I think for me, even though we went through, if you think about it, like if you actually go to the time, it was through perestroika, when the USSR fell, where my mother would have to line up to get milk and butter, just to survive. There was no food on the shelves. It was a very harsh time. But me personally, I don't remember any hardships because my mom was always positive. We always had love in the house, meaning, just somehow we would get by, and and my father worked at a chicken factory. They were like, take chickens, so he would be able to get a chicken, and we'd be happy because we would have some protein and things like that. So I never felt like we were poor, and by no means my family was wealthy. So when we moved to Canada, they sold the apartment, which I think was for like $20,000 or something like that, and that's all they had when they moved to Canada. And so for me, my memory is like very slim, and I really say my memory really starts in Canada. That's when things really kick off, because then my parents get divorced, because being immigrant is very tough. You don't know the language. Then I'm with a single mother with two kids who has like never really worked before, and now has to like provide for her two kids. And I think that's where like shit got real, and you actually are faced with the realities of life. But at the same time, I got the better end of the stick, because my mother never really. Still, like, I didn't get the really like crying stuff like life is so hard when I was young. It was my sister who got the brute force of the sharing of that. So and that's why I think why I have such a positive outlook on life is throughout it I was very still, I would say, seen as the good side. There's opportunity, there's optimism to have in life, and that's how I was raised. So it was, even though if by any North American standards we're struggling very poor in Canada with welfare checks, and like I remember having to get food at the food banks and all that stuff. So it was definitely hard times, but I never felt pity for myself.
So, I mean, a lot of us have kind of like a similar immigrant story. And, I find that what's interesting with your family and just like with your philosophy overall is that in a situation like, before you came to Canada and after you came to Canada, and like, as you said, shit got real, parents can do this kind of one of two ways, right? They can kind of fall into this trap of negativity, which is really easy to do. But I feel like one of the common denominators I find, and everybody talks right now about positivity on social media, and it's such a real thing. It's such a real thing that, you can look at the situation in two ways. And I feel that from what you're telling me, correct me if I'm wrong, it's like your family is in Canada, and instead of dwelling on the fact that things are tough and we're new to the country and there's not a lot of money, and like you're talking about like welfare and this and that, it sounds to me like your attitude, which I believe I'm guessing came from your folks so much, because I'm guessing you were still in contact with your dad. They had split up, but you guys were still in touch, right? Yeah,
we're a little in touch, right? Because not so much, because obviously, my father cheated on my mother, and that's why she loved him, but she kind of had that pride, that she had to leave and be independent.
Of course.
I would say, so it was another kind of things that has occurred. But I think overall, growing up, especially, teenage times are very pivotal times, I think, for any individual. Mm-hmm. And I think there was, at the same time, it's not like out to say you met my mother. She is very positive and she's very bright, but at the same time, she's not. There was, of course, with any hardships, you can see on people's face when someone's struggling, when someone's going through something that is very difficult, and that was definitely a big case in our family. And I'll say there was definitely a time where I wanted to have pity, and I felt bad, and I felt like the world's against me. Why am I this poor immigrant? Why am I such a loser? Like, why is things not working out for me? And then there's really, you get faced with the choice in life. Do you want to choose the struggle and be in the scarcity mindset that life is so hard and it's so bad and the world is against you? Or do you want to choose the side of, hey, what can I be grateful for? What do I have that's going well in my life? How can I turn around? How can I look into the future to create a better future? And of course, I would say that came a little later on my journey and through coming across some work, of actually Tony Robbins later on that was given by one of my first jobs. I was working as a stock person in a retail store where my mom worked as a salesperson. And the manager gave me Personal Power 2 tapes. And it was the first time I came across somebody speaking in that way. I'm like, whoa, like this is this thing of, gratitude and power walks and setting goals and vision for your life. I was like, this is interesting. I'd never came across as pretty much living, in not the greatest part of the city.
It's interesting. It's interesting because it's when you kind of had this shift in mindset, which I think was kind of one of the genesis moments for kind of where you are today. When you had this shift in your mindset, you didn't have the internet at scale. Like you were a teenager in the 90s. We didn't have like the internet at scale. So you didn't have like right now, all of this is shouting at us. It's so available to us. There's 1,000, gurus. No, but it's real, right? Like, but you, and what I'm trying to extract is, when people are feeling down, when people are feeling low and they're in this bad situation, it's like right now, it's hard not to be positive because everyone's screaming it at us at all times on social media. But you were in a situation where you didn't have the internet at scale. You didn't have Instagram. You didn't have social media telling you all this. You had literally one guy at, when you were working, stocking shelves, you had one guy give you this Tony Robbins tape. So I guess my question is, what's the difference between, I'm sure that guy gave another kid that same Tony Robbins tape, right? And the question is what characteristic do you feel you have, whether it's naturally or that you had to develop, that made you identify that, hey, I gotta get into this. This is important.
I think, same thing in life. I had this moment where I share this often. I was walking back home. I know I'm going to be alone, right, from junior high school. So I'm probably like 13, 14. So I'm going to go home alone. I'm going to have to make myself probably some like pasta and maybe I have some butter like for protein. That was like my highlight. Maybe I have a can of tuna, which would be like a real score. And my sister's probably out somewhere. My mother's working like all day. So I had this kind of moment of, once again, pity and like how I'm this whatever poor immigrant kid and this, just moment. And at that moment, I realized no one cares. Like, no one cares about me. Like, I thought, like, not even my mother cares, not the government, not the school. Like, no one gives a crap about my life. And my life is so meaningless to a certain degree. And at that moment, I also realized, well, there is one person who can care, and that is me. I can take responsibility for my life and that have that ability to respond to whatever situation that I'm in and start taking control and charge in whatever way that I can at that moment. So for me, it was really, that was a pivotal moment, or realizing that I'm the only one responsible for my life. No one's going to come here and save me, not the government, not my mom, not my dad. Like, I'm the only one. I'm the main hero of this journey. And if it's going to be up to somebody, it's going to be me. And so even though, like I said, and then I think when you when you start asking, the teacher comes, right? And my teacher came through through tapes, right? At the same time, I could have been an arrogant teenager who got those tapes and be like, screw you, I don't need this stuff, and then just gone by my day by stocking shelves in the retail store and drinking beers at night. Like that could have been the same situation. I can't also throw that off because I was at moments the kid who's smoking up, drinking beers, like when I was like 13, 14, right, getting drunk, all these things. I was that hooligan in Bathurst and Steeles. We grew up in a kind of similar neighborhood, so some of the
you and I grew up in the same place. I actually grew up in Bathurst and Steeles too, so I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, look, it's incredible. I want to fast forward for a second because I want to provide some kind of context here. Is that I've met your mom several times, and your mom she's such a lovely lady. And every time I see her, she's like beaming from happiness. And, you know, I'm very confident. And you've moved her. She lives in London with you, at least for part of the year. She lives in London
6 months
with
of the
you,
year,
right? Yeah. Well, that's a big chunk of the year. And every time I see your mom, she's so happy and she's so beaming. So, you know, to go for a 13-year-old kid to identify and pick up a Tony Robbins tape and say, look, like, I got to change my life and nobody else cares about me besides me, to then do what you've done throughout your life, and to the point where, you know, I see your mom and I see how happy she is and I see how well she's taken care of, is just incredible. And I think a lot of people kind of, when they see the end result and they'll see, you know, they see Alex Ikonn and kind of they see the life that you're living and they see your accomplishments, it's so easy to completely disregard this origin story. Nobody thinks about this. That's what I find. Nobody thinks about this, and no one's trying to understand, like, how do you get from to the next step. So let's continue. So you're a 13-year-old hooligan. You've realized that no one's coming. You're getting drunk and smoking weed. Okay, I get it. You know, you which, by the way, like, knowing you, that's just so opposite of what anything that you are. Yeah, you're definitely not a hooligan. But, you know, kind of fast forwarding, so you're a teenage kid. You've made this realization. You know, you've got now this kind of teacher in Tony Robbins, and I'm assuming that you're now sourcing out other types of content. You're probably consuming things on a pretty regular clip. It sounds to me like you don't have this, like, as a boy, you don't have and I could be wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, you don't have like a strong father figure who's telling you, hey, like, you got to do this, then this. So this is, you're self-made not only from a financial perspective, but you're self-made from a cerebral development perspective. Like, you created this, you pushed yourself to become this. So okay, so you're in school. I'm assuming you probably I wouldn't be surprised if you and I went to the same public school. And you eventually, I just went there a lot earlier than you, but you eventually went on to, I'm guessing, you went to school afterwards, right? So you finished high school. Where did you go to school after?
Yeah. I think, to touch on that point, so I like I said, I did have a father, but he wasn't that present. Then he died of cancer when I was 17. So that was another kind of major blow. I didn't really have a father figure kind of in my life, as you said. So at the same time, even touching on that, same thing, you can look at your situation that, hey, you know, I didn't have a father, poor me. I am very grateful for my situation. The reason I had to grow up quickly, the reason I had to become a man more quickly, is because I had no other choice. So in a way, like, when life challenges you, it's up to you once again to take the responsibility. Say, you know, like, I believe it feels a lot more empowering when you choose, and I think it's very important to put emphasis on this. You choose to take charge. Yeah. And even in the struggle, you're like, you know, I'm going to try to figure this out. At least, like, it's kind of like 50 Cent back in the day, you know, get rich or die trying. Like, I'm gonna yeah. I might as well. Like, what do I got to lose? Okay, I'm gonna die. But like, especially when you face the death of a loved one, and my father's cancer it was kind of like, he was given, I would say, about 4 to 8 weeks to live. I think he lived probably 12 weeks, and I would go there, in hospice care, and like on Bathurst, take that bus and see my dad withering away. And the reason I say this story is that I think a lot of us, and you've been there in our summit, and that was the first exercise that we did with everybody, is to really, face your death. Like, what do you think? You're gonna live here forever? Like wake up! Like it's you're gonna die. And that was the thing that I was confronted with in my kind of, I guess, adolescent kind of coming of age, and that was very real to me. But at the same time, it empowered me to, like, this life is not a joke. Like you think you can just like play around here all the time? Like, yeah, you can, but at the same time, if you want to make something out of it, you have the ability to give it a go. And what are you going to lose? You're going to die anyways. So you might as well make the most out of life that you can, and create those dreams, and create the things that you do want to do in this lifetime. Because I think many of us we're afraid to even attempt or even try to do that. But what I often find, including yourself and many other successful that I meet, is the people who are willing to put their skin in the game and say, hey, I'm willing to play. I want to be part of this.
Yeah.
I want to risk it. I want to, do something. They're the ones who get the prize. Like, you're not going to get a prize.
I bet I bet that there are people who, because I experience this myself, there are people, whether it's close family members or friends, who look at you where, you're talking to somebody and you're sharing with somebody your plans, like, I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to start this business, or I'm going to pivot here and I'm going to pivot there, or I'm going to invest here or there. And they look at you and they think, you're crazy. How can you do that? You're just nuts. And I get that all the time. Like, our whole move to Miami, people think I'm a lunatic, but how do you get over that? Like, how do you get over the fact that how do you turn those voices off? Like, and again, these are people who love you. These are your friends, your family, telling you, like, I remember my dad told me, what, you're quitting your job, your $30,000 job to start a business? You're crazy. How are you gonna pay for your crappy little basement apartment? Like, so how do you tune those noises out?
I think you tune those voices out with having a bigger dream than your current state. So you have to get excited about something, and you have to see yourself there. And I think that's the most important part, is that and it takes time. It's like when you start going to the gym, you're not gonna be that buff guy all of a sudden on your day one. It's not gonna happen, right? Like, you can be like, hey, I want to be a Schwarzenegger, but like, it's gonna take time for you to become Schwarzenegger, and you can, if you want to. It's gonna take a lot of work. It's gonna take a lot of sacrifice, but I believe you can build yourself up. And I think the first thing that starts with on this journey is having that awareness that I want to, or I have this dream. And I think that starts kicking things off, because then you can reverse engineer of, how do I get there? And to me, a lot of people, for example, I think, as you said, in the current society with social media and all that stuff, they said, oh, it's so bad because we have all these people really showing off, and now a lot of these people are jealous and they're whatever. I'm like, the way I was raised is I was always admiring people who are doing great things. In our household, we would never say, oh, look at that person showing off or doing whatever. It's like, wow, look at that person. They're doing great by, building this hospital or building this business. My mom would never talk down or be jealous of anybody. So I'm very fortunate that I have that mindset of being able to look at people who have done way, in a way, they give you clues on the pathways of the life that you want to build. They say you need to study success. Don't study failure. A lot of, like, the reason why there's no need to take advice from your friends or family members, if they haven't done those things that you want to achieve, their advice is irrelevant, because them being scared and all that stuff. Yeah, like, it feels nice to have people in your life who want to care for you, but a lot of times they're just communicating to you their own fears and inadequacy. And
absolutely.
And I had so many friends. Like, I remember when I started the 5-minute journal, all my friends thought it was the stupidest idea ever. Like, what is it? They'll make fun of me. Like, what a joke. 5-minute journal? Like, I'm gonna write. You're gonna like. I'm gonna write things in, and I'm gonna pay you $25 for this. Silly idea. Right now, close to 2 million units sold. Like, who's laughing, right? Yeah. And it's not like I never. Sure. Once again, I never had that at the same time. Even when we created those kind of products with our first businesses, like, we weren't always shooting like, hey, we're gonna become super millionaires, things like that. And that's kind of, we can speak to that. We always have humble kind of first goals, like minimal viable product, minimal viable dream.
Yeah.
So you can have, I think what I want to really make a point of, it's important to have big dreams, but you have to be realistic of where you are. So same thing to that kind of gym analogy. You have to understand, what are you coming in with? What can you lift at this moment? You know, like, what are you capable of? Start with what you can lift now, and then work your way up with enough time. And it's the same thing. Let's say that summit event that we did in Ibiza. A decade ago, could I have pulled that off? No way. I just wouldn't be prepared. But I felt at that moment, yes, I can buy out at Six Senses right now. And even if I lose $500,000, I can do that. You know, like, because at my stage, I have the muscle, you know, to be able to pull that off. But earlier on,
I think, sorry to interrupt, but like, I think that event in particular, regardless, I mean, you and I kind of briefly touched on some of the economics around it. We didn't really go into depth, so I don't really know the economics. But even if you did lose money on it, money's not the only currency, because I feel that what you gained in terms of your and Mimi's personal brands and the relationships and just the overall goodwill that you created with, hundreds of the attendees whatever the count was, the goodwill that you created with these people, like, people are still talking about this. So I think it was a huge move, and I think the benefit of that is going to continue. And in terms of profitability, I believe firmly that you'll figure out how to make it not only a goodwill generator, but a highly profitable venture as well. I wanna go back. These are all like really valuable. This is all really valuable information, and I think like the fact that we established where you came from and this mindset, it's providing, I think, such a great story for the listeners to really engage with and to understand. But I want to go back, and I want to kind of go back into kind of the chronological story of your life, because there's a lot of key moments, including like, what happened after high school, where you went from an education perspective. And I really want to get into how you and Mimi got together, which I'm probably looking forward to that part the most. But let's talk about. Because you guys are really awesome together. I mean, I don't think I've ever actually seen you just on. Well, no, I saw you once. You were in Miami and we grabbed a drink. But in any case, after you finished high school, you mentioned you weren't the best student. So I'm also guessing like you didn't finish high school exactly at the top of your class. Would that be safe to say?
I was okay. Like I think once I kind of got myself together and I was able to get to York University. So it was fine, but it wasn't like top student for sure. Kind of like a C+ student turning into a B+ student.
Okay, so where did you go? Sorry, you mentioned that because you just cut out for a little bit. You mentioned that you went to York University after high school.
Yes.
And how were you able to afford that?
Well, I think one of the things is when my dad did pass away, for some odd reason he had like a little insurance policy that in the neighborhood people sell you insurance, and he had like a little insurance policy, so that pretty much paid through my school and bought my mama like a down deposit on the condo. So I'm very, at the same time, that was what allowed us to do that. But even then you can't get OSAP and things like that, which is like a government loan. So I had to pay through that. But at the same time, I still, like, it was not like it was like millions of dollars. It wasn't nothing huge. But so I still had to work, and I had to work through university. So I would work actually full time at a bank, like a retail bank. First as a teller, then I became an account manager. And when I became an account manager, which is a guy who like sells you mortgages and like guaranteed investment coupons and things like that, and credit cards, that's when I met Mimi. I got upgraded, promoted to a different branch. And as I was working 9 to 5 at a bank and then going to school 7 to 10 for my lectures, I then kind of had this dual life, and I was able to, because I wanted to be a banker. That's who I was going to become, because back then entrepreneurship wasn't as sexy as it is now. And being a banker was the way to the riches. So I thought that's what I wanted. And of course, I'm very grateful to Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce for introducing me to my wife. So I will be forever grateful to that bank.
But I mean, but besides, look, I mean, besides meeting your wife, I mean, there were, I'm sure, massive benefits for a young man to like have to stick to a schedule, get somewhere on time, do a job, be responsible. You know, like there was something. Would you say that there's something to be said for that experience, or was it like a complete waste of time? Besides meeting Mimi,
University or the bank?
Both. No, university, both, like university and the bank. So I guess what I'm asking is, let's start with the university. So from the perspective of the university, I'm guessing you studied something to do with finance.
Business, yeah.
Business. So was there benefit to that in your opinion?
No. But here's my thing too. I think in regards to school, I think if you go to school, especially for business, you got to be going to the top schools. If you can get into the top Ivy schools, Stanford, Harvard, Wharton, these type of schools, it'll be worth it, most likely, because and most importantly, what I've learned is like, don't be like me, who's like working through school. Like school is all about the network and the people that you'll meet there. I believe I was off of campus. I was living down the street at Bathurst and Steeles, commuting to Keele and Steeles, which is where York University is. I didn't have that full experience. I just went in to get my degree, and that's it. I think I've learned way more on business through then, let's say, working on my friend's business right after I graduated for 2 months. And I've learned, that's how I was able to start our first business, was working at our friend's.
What kind of business was that?
He was selling these magnet toys called Nano Dots. And then these kind of Lego for like toys for magnets. And he asked me, that's another story. I got fired from the bank after. And then after I got fired from the bank, I was then trying to do my own business and as a social media consultant in 2008-9. Which back then is a snake oil salesman. Nobody like social media, like that's not gonna drive your business. Right. And he saw that I was doing it. And he's like, "Hey, why don't you come in and be like employee number 3 at our business and help us do social media?" And I'm like, I was kind of like, I didn't want a job, but I'm like, okay, cool, I'll take this job. And I was there early, trying to help them do their social media strategy, things like that. And then and this is what I tell people all the time to this day, is that probably working at a small business that you yourself may want to do or gain skill sets from, and where you can work directly with the founders and speak to founders is like, it's your MBA. It's priceless. But of course you have to use that time, meaning I would grab lunch with my friend, right? I would ask him all sorts of questions about the business that were not related to my role at all. Right? How do you fulfill? Mm-hmm. How do you manufacture? How do you ship? How do you do the taxes? So at one point, maybe he was thinking like, why is this guy asking me so many questions? But I also kind of, read the 4-Hour Workweek before, which is all about kind of creating a lifestyle business. But at the same time, the 4-Hour Workweek is just an idea. It gives you some kind of technicalities, but a lot of, I'll say, books don't give you a lot of context in regards to how to actually create a business from scratch. And I think, going back to a university degree, the reason why I say it wasn't valuable to me is because I think university degree is really valuable if you want to be in a professional service, meaning you're going to work for a bank, or you're going to be in finance, you're going to become a banker, it gives you those great foundations of tools. It prepares you more to be university is a farm to prepare workers for the corporate work, and to be part of the corporate organization. And there's nothing wrong with that, because corporations need people, including our businesses now, right? We need educated people that will follow directions and rules, that we know, hey, they've, as you said, they've stuck around for 4 years. Most likely they know how to, follow rules if I tell them to do so, and they'll be able to do it. Kind of like the basics of it, of course. And
Yeah.
But when it comes to starting a business, a small business from scratch, it takes a different kind of knowledge than what they would teach you in university. Even in let's say an entrepreneurship class, same thing. I think even in a lot of entrepreneurial stuff that goes on in universities is more focused around same thing, more bigger businesses, fundraising, building a bigger business, things like that. And once again, there's nothing wrong with these things. These are actually all things that I need to be learning now, right? Or I have been learning in the last decade. Now that I have a business, now that I have employees, now I need to learn about organizational structure, human resources, like hierarchy, behavior management. These are all definitely relevant things, but I think they're relevant once you have a business that's doing millions of dollars.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. I'm smiling while you say it because I feel like I have such a similar experience. Like if you talk to any of the people who work with our team, like with us, they don't know what to do with me because I don't have this like intimate knowledge of all these like formal systems. I'm a cowboy. I'm always like distracting them. I give them one thing to do and they haven't even figured that out yet, and I'm throwing some other stuff at them because I got this idea because I saw something or I spoke with you or So no, I completely understand. I think that with education, with formal education, it does prepare people for the workforce. And by the way, like I personally don't think there's anything wrong with that in the sense that it's okay. Like, if you're happy being an employee and you can kind of clock out at a certain time and you don't have this like stress every month of like, meeting payroll, making sure you do enough revenue and all of that, then I think that's a really good life. And, obviously a lot of people thrive in that. And then there's like super high levels of employment. Like you've got like this, CEOs of like Disney and, and all these guys like Tim Cook over at Apple. So yeah, but kind of getting back to what you were, getting back on track to your story. So, okay. So you worked for your buddy for a couple of months. I'm trying to understand, because I know that so you met Mimi and you guys started Luxy Hair together. Was that your first project together?
Yeah. So what happened was, and like the crazy thing is, when I've been actually rereading when Mimi and I first like hooked up, like we were coworkers first, and then we had, we're just friends,
right.
And then she was gonna move away to Azerbaijan and where she's from, and then we kind of started.
Let's get a little personal, okay? Because you and I never really spoke about kind of how you met. I knew you met her at work at the bank. I knew that, but I didn't really understand. So you're saying you met her at work. Obviously, you met her. You thought she was great. And how did that whole thing play out?
Well, it played out, like I said, I never thought I had a chance. Right? Hands down. I think when you're like 20 and the girl's 21, you're like, she's going to be dating Gary's, she's going to be dating older guys with experience and money and cars. I'm just like this broke schmuck in university, right? Let's be real. Like and she's gorgeous. So that was. She's
lovely. Yeah, she's lovely.
Yeah.
Mimi's the best. I agree.
Especially back then, I was like, whoa, like she's really, something. And so I was infatuated. I was like, wow, she's really good looking, and she's also very nice and kind. She's just like the total package.
She is.
So I was like, this is kind of out of my league. But then she was gonna move away because like Canada's boring, this whole routine life. I'm gonna move back to Azerbaijan to the exciting life because there's opportunities there, because it's like a lot happening in that smaller place. And then she's like, hey, if you can get me ice skates, we can go ice skating together. And I'm like, whoa, she's asking me out. Like, that's what I thought.
It's a little window of opportunity. Yeah, it's a little window. Yeah, I like it.
Because I'm like, wow.
Okay.
Like,
and how did that go?
Because as a coworkers, you kind of, you're coworkers and you maybe do some parties together. But to take it outside of the workplace, to do something together, just you two, I'm like, wow, this is interesting. I guess maybe I was just having some fun or whatever. And so that was it. That was kind of, to me, that was green light. And once you give me a green light, I am, you can astrology, if you believe in that, I'm a Taurus. They say it's stubborn. I call myself persistent. And I have this thing in our office is, kind of, what does it say? It's just more about, you can't be the person who doesn't give up. and like, and that's me. Like that's my personality. Like I just don't give up. Like once I know it's possible, I'm gonna keep going. I'm just gonna like keep going until I
So hold on a second, but you're making it sound like it wasn't so easy. So you went ice skating with her. So was she right away saying, okay, we're dating, or was she saying no, and you kept persisting?
No, because what happened, I think at first it was playful to her, and then we kind of went on this date, and there was some kind of, I actually didn't know how to skate. So I put myself in the position where I'm the guy who's falling. She's the person who's like holding me up. And obviously we're getting close and things like that. We grab some sushi after, and there's definitely some chemistry. There's some ability. And for me, I was like, and we just kind of started going on dates together. And when everything was kind of going well, she like freaked out, and she's like, I don't want to be like, I'm going away. This is not serious. So anyways, long story short, she turned me down like 4 times. So we would start dating, and then she'd be like, no, it's not gonna work. Let's just stop it now. And I'm like, cool, let's just be friends. But obviously I wouldn't kind of stop, but I would just keep being persistent. And eventually to a point where she still moved. I'm like, hey, you should still move and have this experience, but let's keep it going. And that's what I was telling you about is for Valentine's Day, she moved around, I think in late December, January. And she came back, I think, around kind of Valentine's Day after. She was supposed to move like forever, but she only left for a month or so to Baku. But in that time, we wrote emails to each other every day. And Gary, I kid you not, these are the craziest emails ever. What I mean by that, like the things that we'd speak about there, like came true. We would be speaking about like, hey, maybe we should be business partners one day. Hey, like Mimi's like, you're a great businessman. Like I'm sure you'll do great. And like, there were just all these dreams and hopes of these like very naive, the 20-year-olds seeking this life together. And the reason I say that's really how our relationship kind of began. And then I got fired from the bank, which began our little 2-year unemployment. So my last 2 years of university, I said, okay, I'm going to give this entrepreneurship thing a go. And I tried different ventures. They didn't kind of really work out. And Luxy Hair, which was our business, was really our Hail Mary. We were running out of money. And it was like, basically, I'll need to take a job if this doesn't succeed. And before that business, that's when I went to work for my friend. And that's really where I learned those basics I needed to learn to be able to launch my own business. And that's why
Sorry. Was it a coincidence that Mimi was entrepreneurial as well? Because Mimi, again, she's an employee at the bank. You guys are talking. She comes back from Baku, and you guys are now discussing like, how did you decide to do this together? How did you decide? Okay, first of all, how did you decide? Did you want to do a business together at all? How did she? I understand, like, because I understand your path and your interest in being an entrepreneur. Mimi, did you have to pull her into being an entrepreneur, or were you guys kind of pushing each other to do this?
So same thing. If you like go back to these letters, which were crazy, I'll be like, hey, you should, maybe she's looking for a job even in Baku then, and I'm like, hey, why don't you just work for yourself? That's the best way to kind of make real money, is to work for yourself. I don't know, for some reason I always thought that. And then I always encouraged, as I always do now to people, I always encourage people to follow their dreams and to live to their highest potential. And I felt that if you can make your dream a reality by what do you actually want to do? And that's what I would kind of tell her about. And she's like, I want to be in fashion and things like that. I'm like, great, be like a fashion stylist. So she tried that. And she was an image consultant. She was a fashion stylist. But like, it's also very hard. And once you see the reality, you're like, it's not so glamorous. And she kind of stopped that.
Right.
I got fired from the bank. Mimi, you can say to a certain degree, is even more entrepreneurial. She said, I quit. I don't want to work in corporate. And she just quit. I'm like, are you sure? I'm unemployed, but like, why would you want to be unemployed too? She's like, whatever. I don't want to do this anyway. So
you guys weren't living together at this point, were you? Or were you already like fully together?
Well, by that point, I proposed to her. We're living with my mom's apartment in Primrose in the Bathurst and Steeles. And
I know the buildings.
yeah, exactly. So so here I am living with my mom, with my future wife, unemployed, not making any money. My business venture is not working out. And I got, at first where it was employment benefits in Canada, God bless Canada, EI checks. So they're about $1,500 a month, and Mimi was getting those as well. When those ran out, we applied for a business grant, which was great, which gave us another like $20K for another next year to kind of last through and to try another more business ventures. Because I think with entrepreneurship, a lot of times you need time to figure things out and to succeed. And a lot of people, so I'm very grateful going back to Canada to be able to have that social safety net, to be able to experiment for close to 2 years with different business ventures. And then by the end of it, so what pulled us in was basically when we were getting married, and when money's about to run out, and I don't know what we're getting married then, and you have to, there were these two dreamers, and we're getting married. That's when Mimi's like, "Hey, I need hair extensions for the wedding." I'm like, "What are hair extensions?" And she showed it to me, and she showed me, and I'm like, "I don't get it." I'm like, "Why do you need to buy hair? You already have hair. Like, why do you need more hair?" I didn't understand. And she showed me a YouTube video, and that's when the whole thing clicked. Of, hey, we can create this business, and there's this opportunity in this market of hair extensions. That was our first business, and for me, just kind of the whole strategy panned out. I'm like, we can create YouTube videos. Gary Vaynerchuk back at that time was doing like wine library, kind of talking about wine. I'm like, great, we can do a channel fully focused on hair, and we'll sell this hair related product, and it'll be very organic, natural way to sell it. As you said at the beginning, and I just told to Mimi, like, hey, let's just do this together. And her sister was actually a 1/3 equal partner when we started, because she was just lucky, she was in a room with us when that happened. And I'm like, hey, we're all unemployed together. Let's just do this together. I'm like, you two create videos every week, and I'll do the operations and the business side. And boom, they're like, the rest is history. We made $1 million in our first year, which was way unexpected.
Wow.
And then it kind of grew from then. And so it turned out to be a very lucrative business, but we've always maintained that kind of lifestyle. We didn't grow that business in the typical business fashion. We could have made it way bigger if we wanted to.
You said it could have been bigger, and so why didn't you make it bigger? What was the...
I think mostly because we focus on lifestyle. So 4-hour work week for us was, in a way, the Bible, and it was more about how do we maximize our lifestyle versus business. And then we, of course, along the way in the last more than a decade of being in business, of course, you learn that so much more. This is where the stuff that you learn in university comes into use in regards to building out structure and management and hiring professionals and all these kind of things. So now for sure you can see how the business becomes its own entity, and you need to feed it in a different way. However, we're very fortunate where we also feel like, hey, I think the opportunity that the current, and even back then, I think now even more, the current era of technology and commerce and global markets, what it gives is that what we have to understand, a business that makes a few $1 million on the grand scale of things in the world is nothing. Like it's literally, it's very, it's not a lot of money, because the global marketplace is trillions of dollars, and people don't understand what $1 billion or $1 trillion is. Like, it's a lot, and to have a fairly nice business for individuals, you can structure it in a fairly simple way. And that's why right now, especially, there's a rise of even solo entrepreneurs who are like basically by themselves, and they're able to generate over $1 million by themselves. That's really, I think, the opportunity that we saw. We didn't want to build a big business.
I just wanted to say, when you're talking about like the scale of a business, I think that a business that has like that's doing, let's say, a few million, $2, $3, $4, $5 million a year, to me, that business may have enough margin in it, enough profit in it to give the owners of the business a very nice lifestyle, and a certain, and a security to a certain degree. Where my fear is in a business that's only like a $2 to $5 million business is that without sufficient scale, my concern is that it won't potentially last. Whereas a business that's doing, 50, 100 million, $200 million a year and beyond, that's a business that I feel like the scale is so high that it's going to be hard to knock that business down. So I feel that there's more security in scale. But you're saying that you, like with Luxy, you guys weren't going after, like you because you wanted to balance your lifestyle, you weren't necessarily trying to get scale. But did you at some point decide, hey, like we do want to get scale? Because for you to have sold it, you had to have some scale.
Yes,
people wouldn't have bought it if it was just like a couple of $1 million a year, right?
Definitely, for sure. So I think what you realize along the journey is, because what started happening to us, all of a sudden, private equity guys, venture capitalists will start coming to us. Yeah. Either, let's say, we would have meetings with Sequoia, right? So on Sand Hill Road. And because because the partner's wife is a customer, so and like, what are you guys building here? And so we would have, but at that time we knew nothing about venture capital or fundraising or private equity. But at the same time, I think what I would communicate is one of my superpowers is like, I'm not afraid to be stupid. Like that, it is a superpower. I think a lot of people are afraid because they want to sound like they know it all and things like that. I'm so comfortable asking stupid questions. Like that's how, going back to what you said before, always learning. How can I learn if I say it? Oh yeah, I know this. No, I can't. If I don't know, I ask.
Yeah, of course.
And so with a lot of these guys, when a lot of these people started approaching us, and it's the same way going back to the beginning of the business. Like, how do we manufacture and create products? Like I said, just ask questions. Like, don't be afraid to what people will react. Most likely, they'll be very open and receptive to answering your questions. And in fact, even with our own employees now, if they're not asking me questions, I'm actually concerned. I'm like, why aren't you asking questions? Like, it's actually like a red flag.
It's like when the kids are in the room and they're too quiet. There's really quiet. You got a bunch of kids in a room. You got to start worrying what the hell's going on in there.
Yeah, it actually shows insecurity a lot of times. So anyway, with that journey, I would just ask a lot of questions, and along that, I then once again reverse engineer to like, okay, what is this world of private equity? What is this venture capital? And then deciding, okay, do I want to go on either of those routes? Do I want to take, growth equity, where venture capital side, where they'll give us money basically to grow the business, but we're not taking anything, right, to a certain degree? Or do I want to take maybe potentially have a private equity kind of exit? And I would ask them, okay, what scale do you need? What growth numbers do you need? What's the ratio of, and then EBITDA? I'm like, what the hell is EBITDA, right? and in terms of profitability and learning about the margins that they're looking for, the growth numbers they're looking for. Okay, what if I want to exit at this amount? What do I need to be doing? And then we kind of, once again, we're like, okay, this is the six, in Canada there's Lotto 649, and I've always thought, okay, how, like, I'd want to win this amount of money. So I thought, okay, how do we get this amount of money, and how do we reverse engineer it? So then I would just ask, same thing. Okay, we need to make this much revenue to be able to potentially exit at this amount of thing, and at the same time, then you'd learn about earnouts, and meaning if you would sell the business, you still have to stay on, because throughout our journey, we would actually get a term sheet from a private equity deal, but then it'll be like, hey, you have to stick around for the next 3 years and grow this business, and then we'll only pay you out then. I'm like, why would I want to stick around for 3 years and grow your business that's not mine anymore? I'm like, I left as an employee back long ago. I'm not going to become an employee again. So all I'm saying in all these kind of things on my journey is that it's always been asking really simple questions, reverse engineering, and then saying, okay, this is what we need to do. And then we would just take the steps slowly to get there. And I think that's another thing that a lot of people forget, is that you don't build success overnight. And if you start thinking more long-term, and long-term, I'm saying like 7 to 10 years, like even a decade, you can do, like, look at us. Like, this is all happened in the last 13 years. And I'll say majority of it happened for us in like the first, 7 years, like the pivotal kind of stuff. Now we're just kind of building upon that. And now what I'm learning is that like a decade is not that long. Like you, Gary, you've been through kind of life as well. And I think a lot of people, they're not willing to put in the work for that decade. But if you're willing to say, hey, I'm going to commit myself to learn, to be a student, to get to that outcome in a decade, I'm pretty confident you'll be able to achieve a lot of the stuff that your dreams, if you're simply able to commit and to do the work for the next decade.
Yeah, absolutely. I see it a lot. And it's interesting because I'm obviously on social media quite a bit, and I'm seeing all of these kind of business opportunities being presented to youth, or just to people in general. And it's created this, I think, expectation that, you can turn around tomorrow and create something and it's going to start just cash flowing hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars every month. And I think there's a danger in that. And I think, people like yourself, people like me, who like we've actually been through these ventures where you start a business, it goes up, it goes down, it goes up, it goes down, it's close to going out of business, then it skyrockets. So, but throughout the course of it, it's like you stay on course, and then you eventually get to building a sufficient amount of value where you can extract you can extract value for yourself. And I think, to your point, that's a really important lesson for people to understand that yeah, it does take time. Somebody once told me, it was just like an old friend from the neighborhood years ago. He said like his uncle had created this like food distribution company they're around now. They're doing hundreds of millions of dollars a year. And he told me that his uncle had said an overnight success is 10 years. That's an overnight success. That's like a real overnight success. So that's, that I think those are kind of, it's a good parameter, I think, when you're building your business, to understand that you do have to be patient and you have to continue to be consistent and put in the work. So with Luxy Hair, what year again? I'm trying to understand the timeline. So what year did you start it, and then what year did you exit out of it completely?
We started in 2010 and we exited in 2018, late fall.
Fast. I mean, it's fast.
8 years. It's not that fast. But once again, I think, Tony Fidel, who was at our summit, and one of the things that he says is before, you go through a big junction in your life, you start a new chapter where you finish your career or business or whatever. Before you start the next one, usually you take a break, and because whatever you do is going to take you about, if you really commit to it, kind of what we've been speaking about, it's going to take you most likely like a decade to build something. And that's what I find. Even same thing if you look at even whether it be venture capital funds or private equity funds, usually the fund horizons are like 10 plus years. So it usually takes about a decade from investment to get some sort of kind of return. And if it's earlier, that's great. But I'll say the usual horizon for businesses to kind of mature, especially even really mature, is usually about a decade.
But you guys, I'm assuming you guys were making money along the way. Like you were making a sufficient amount of money along the way that you guys could live.
We're profitable from the start. And that's another thing that, which we kind of discussed with you before, is that, we're more very simple entrepreneurs. So we're like cash flow. So right away, things have to make money. Like we're not the type to raise money and lose money for a long time, which is like, I've learned a lot throughout the years, is like, those are also real businesses. They just have a different business model to what they want to create and the outcome they're seeking. For us, we more think about, making sure that it's cash flow positive from the beginning, and that it makes sense right away. It's more like I call it like, I don't know, like market economics, like of like a market, like Russia market back in the day, like in terms of like bazaar. Like you bought this for $2, you're gonna sell it for 10. Okay, it's gonna cost you these, another $2 in expenses. You're gonna profit $6 on what you sold. It's that simple. Like that's the type of businesses that I do. It's a very simple type of
yeah, for sure. No, I'm the same way. So I want to kind of finish up with Luxy Hair, but before we do, so you sold it in 2018. It's 5 years ago, but that build up, if I understand the business model correctly, because I want people to understand, like, as complex as they may think things are, they're somewhat simple, sort of. So you had Mimi and her sister creating videos that were showing how to style these extensions, right?
Well, no, not really.
Essentially?
So I think the most important thing that I've kind of can communicate is, like, when I first saw it, the reason I was a social media consultant in 2008-9, because when I saw, kind of YouTube and Facebook and Twitter and all these tools, my mentors in that era was definitely Gary Vaynerchuk. Like early, like if you read his book Crush It, he kind of outlines what happened. It's pretty incredible. And another person was Seth Godin. Seth Godin, his book Linchpin. This is like my Bible. It's a book that we give to all of our employees when they start working with us, and it kind of just speaks more about this. To think about, this book was written in 2008 or 7. He basically outlines how, the internet is going to disrupt the whole power dynamics. How before it was more about a kind of media channels, and at the same time and the user and the consumer is like at the bottom, to a certain degree. Now it's being flipped, where the power is going. He spoke about this in 2007-8, and that's what I read. I'm like, it was like out of a manifesto source. I'm like, I believe in this, where the power is going to go to the individuals, and through these technologies like YouTube, Twitter, and so forth, we now can have our own media channels, as we're doing now, communicating and build our own audience. And through that audience, if you build that 1,000 true fans, you're going to be able to kind of monetize that audience. But the most important element in building the audience is that you build trust. And the way you build trust is by delivering value to your audience and to your tribe to a certain degree. And that's what I've become really like a fan of. So when we built the first business, the content was not tailored just around the product. If you look even to this day, right, you go to Luxy Hair and you look at any of those videos, they're all tailored around giving value first. Meaning the videos were always created around content of what are people searching for. And if what people are searching for is what they're inquiring, they're trying to learn maybe how to create a certain braid for their wedding, or they're trying to learn something else. So it's not related to our product at all. But what we knew is that if they're looking for, let's say, create a certain hairstyle, most likely what they'll see is that because Mimi or her sister will be creating the hairstyle with our product in it, and they'll say if she's showing them how to do a braid, and then she does braid on her own hair, and then she sees Mimi's braid. She's like, how come her braid looks way better than mine? Like, what is happening there? And then she learns, because Mimi, all she would say is that for this hair tutorial, I'm using Luxy hair extensions. That's it. There was never, hey, buy this for 2 payments of $19.99. Go to our website, things like that. It was we are actually we don't, us, we don't like direct selling. We don't like, we're very subtle. It's just a very thing. But what would happen is like, hey, if people would want it, they would buy it. And that's what really I would think has happened on that journey of ours, is what we believed in, is that indirect selling to a certain degree, and by always leading with value. And was the YouTube channel the sole source of traffic? Majority.
Okay. That was your top of funnel?
Yeah. So I guess to kind of add on to that, it was at the always for us. However, same thing. If you want to sell the business, you have to communicate to the buyer. Is it solely reliant just on this Mimi as because then we bought out Layla fairly early in the business, so then it was just Mimi and I, and it was just Mimi then creating the content. is it just, can a business survive without Mimi? So we started 3 years prior to the sale. We cut Mimi from the channel, but we still kept the channel going because we had to make a case, right? That, hey, we can actually still grow the business without Mimi being the main person. And that's what we did.
Of course.
In that time when because like, to kind of, I guess, add on to you is like, what you learn is like with organic, you can only take it so far. And then you learn how do you turn on other potential channels to create that growth. Whether one of our biggest downfalls, not downfalls, but just like a business that came and ate our market was Bellamy, right? Bellamy, it was this kind of business which pretty much their first business was a complete copy of our website, right? They took our images and took that. But then they're actually very smart. What they started doing is, they didn't have a Mimi, right? They didn't have a content thing. But what they started doing back then, the leverage they had, there's tons of Mimis out there making hair tutorials videos. So they just started what you guys also do now. They started doing influencer marketing very early. They started paying girls to make videos and all that stuff. What is now kind of influencer marketing? We just were a bit cocky and we're like, hey, we have this powerhouse of a channel that's bringing us millions of dollars just off of our own content. And we just kind of put in some paid and then ads and things like that. What I'm just trying to comment and say is that there's different ways to approach it. For us, it was our own channel. We then diversified away from the channel and also started doing Facebook ads, things like that. But by the time of the sale, we were able to really showcase to the buyer that, hey, number one is, yes, the YouTube channel still, because there's already so much content library that was there, you would organically get millions of views. And that's the beautiful thing about YouTube versus still to this day versus any other platform, because of its searchability, where people still go to it to search when they need to resolve a certain problem quick. I need to learn. Of course, now it's going to TikTok as well. But at the same time, I'll say even before, YouTube still has it. And that's why to this day, that content library of hundreds of videos that we've created still generates revenue for that business. And then, in fact, after we sold the business, the private equity, they didn't do much to the business, but then the business tripled in the next three years after we sold. Of course, COVID happened, and that was a big kind of addition to the thing. But also those fundamental processes that we put in place in regards to growth, strategy, all that stuff, they were there. And that entails as well, like beyond, how do you then scale beyond just one personality? And so we then started doing the same thing that Bellamy would be doing, which would be also engaging in a lot of gifting of product, a lot of paid for product and things like that. So you have to diversify as a business as you scale, because as you said yourself, if you want to get bigger scale, you'll need to be able to take up more resources to be able to get more of that attention into the business, to then to be able to, into that funnel, as you said, to be able to then feed out and convert a part of that, those people.
Yeah. So, okay. So 2018, Luxy sells. What was that experience like? So, you had gone down this, considering where you started, this journey with Mimi and everything that happened to get you to where, to that point where 2018 you sell the business. From what it sounds like from this conversation is that you sold it and you walked away. You were against staying and doing an earn out. So you sold 100% of the business, or regardless of how you structured it, you had 100% of the business you sold.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So you sell the business, you're now sitting on, X amount of dollars. What was your, what went, so you were already living in London at the time? You had moved, you had already moved to London?
Yeah, we moved to London in 2013.
So, sorry, I need to back up. You're living in Canada. That's a pretty bold move. You had started the business in 2010. You had only been in business for 3 years. And in 3 years, you got some scale, but that's a scary thing, because to move from Toronto to London. Sorry, what year was Alexa born?
2016.
Okay, so you moved in 2013. It's just you and Mimi. I'm guessing you didn't know too many people there. Sorry to kind of jump around, but I want to make sure I don't miss anything.
Yeah.
What was that? So you'd been in business for 3 years and you decided to pick up and move to London. In conversations with you that I've had, I understand that you guys just love London. And I'm going to kind of speak for you for a second. And I'm going to say that maybe you felt that Canada was kind of culturalist and you wanted to move to London because of the right? I don't know. Am I close?
No, okay. I think same thing in regards to giving lessons in regards to business. As you said, it's probably a dumb move to move to a different country as your business is growing on a certain continent, and most of our customers are in North America. And if there was a place to move for us, it would definitely be the U.S. Right, like similar to you guys. So we would be at Los Angeles or New York or Miami, but definitely it will be better choices for business wise. We moved to London more for just lifestyle. We love Europe. We love the ability to travel and to explore. And London gives you that ability to just hop on a train and in 2 hours you're in Paris, as you experienced yourself just now.
Yeah.
Or fly to Italy for the weekend. It becomes like Europe is fairly small, especially compared to like the US. But at the same time, in that size, you have so much diversity and variety of things to explore and see. And ultimately, as I said, we're more lifestyle entrepreneurs, and we're driven by the lifestyle that we want to live versus the business that we want to build and how much money we have. So, but definitely business wise, it would be way better to just stay put. We already had some employees. We had a kick-ass office. We bought a house. Like, we're just establishing ourselves. We're now establishing ourselves as part of the Toronto community. We're part of an entrepreneur organization. We have now entrepreneur friends. And then, as you said, boof, we're like, okay, we're going to leave now and start from scratch in a whole different place. But at the same time, you have to follow your kind of gut and intuition. And ultimately, going back to the death example that I said, when you're looking in your life on a deathbed, how would you make that decision? And for us, it was like, hey, we want to live fully. You don't know when I'm gonna die, so I'm gonna live full out. And that doesn't mean you're irresponsible. And you kind of we still, as you know us personally as well, I'm very calculated in regards to when making decisions or how to make sure that there's also safety in that thing. But we felt, hey, like we can do this decision, we can make it happen. And I'll say at the same time, not to kind of, still the place to make money is the US, hands down. If you want to build the biggest business possible, if you want to make as much money as possible, I still believe US is the epicenter in the world to be able to do that, because the overall system and environment supports you for that. And actually rewards you for it. In Europe, even if you're successful, people are going to be like, why are you working so hard? Like, it's summer. Just like enjoy yourself, relax. Because there's also a lot of old money here. There's a lot of people with money who have had money for a long time, especially in London. So it's not interesting to them. Like, money has in the US to a certain degree, money is the culture. It is the God. It is the thing that rules.
I agree. Very, very much so.
So
I feel it. I feel it here too.
Yeah, which once again communicates. I'm not actually saying it's bad or wrong. In fact, if that's your main goal, that's a great place to go and to orient it. Just for us, we're just like, we're fairly simple. Our goal was to make $1,500 each at first with our first business. We obviously way outshot that, overshot our goal. And we just felt, hey, this is enough for us to live very well, and let's keep it going. But at the same time, let's enjoy ourselves. And we felt, and another thing just one thing to add, another thing that we've learned. Because the first few years from 2010 when we started the business, because we had this idea of being these kind of digital nomad entrepreneurs. And so we did that. We would go to Costa Rica for like 6 weeks and surf and live there. And then we would travel to other places, to Mexico and whatever. And we just realized, like, digital nomads is just not for us. Like, it's not a lifestyle that we like just traveling all the time. We felt it is important to have a base, a place where you live, where you build from. and then you could travel from. And we felt like London is a really great base to still have that foundation, because we felt like if you're always traveling, it's very like psychologically, it's very difficult. You need some stability in your life. You need to still have a home. And we just didn't feel like we needed.
I agree.
Yeah, we didn't feel like Toronto was really home. As you know, the winters are very cold. and it's like,
yeah.
And in terms of business, once again, it's a great community. Don't get me wrong. Toronto's a great community, especially in the last decade, post Shopify, like great entrepreneurial community. But the beautiful thing, I don't know, for us, we were always drawn to live in a place like New York or London, where you play a global game. And what I liked about, a place like London is you can't, like, even if you think you're doing well, you get humbled so quick, because there's so many, you just been here, like there's so many wealthy people. And for me, what it personally does for me, I get to be me, meaning I like to ride my bicycle, right? And that's cool, right? Like there's no point for me to have a Ferrari, because like a lot of my neighbors have Ferraris. Like, so what? Like, I'm not gonna stand out like by having a Ferrari, but actually, like, so I'm like, hey, I just want to ride my bicycle, because it's actually the most efficient way of transport, and I enjoy it. Great, be it, be my guest. So that's what I really love about.
I think that's a great way to look at it. It just kind of reminds me of what you were saying, just, even for us, like moving to Miami from Toronto, the amount, I think the culture here in the United States is just different, specifically in Miami, where it's like every other car is like a $400,000 vehicle. So to me, it's just like, whatever, like what's the point? Then it's funny because, like, before in Toronto, you're like everyone else if you drive whatever, like a BMW or a Mercedes. Here, you're like everyone else if you drive a Rolls Royce. So you just do what you want to do, and just, better to focus on enjoying your life. Okay, so I want to talk about after Luxy. So after Luxy, when did the 5-minute journal hit the scene? Because that, I think, from what I understand, that was a huge pivotal moment. So as much as you yourself and Mimi are known for Luxy Hair, I would think that you're equally as known. And if I have to say more, and I don't want to say this in a negative way to put down your accomplishments at Luxy Hair, but you're more, I feel, admired for 5-minute journal, because when I speak with people and I tell them that I know you, and they may or may not know you by name, a lot of them know you by name, but those who don't know you by name, when I explain to them the connection with 5-minute journal, that's when they know. And the reaction to that product is always very positive. Like, people are just very, they're very motivated by the product. So talk to me about kind of the genesis of this product. So now you have, and because I feel like it was born out of a place of like less fear, like maybe more security. You had sold your business and now you're contemplating your next move. So you created this really meaningful and mindful product. So talk to me about the genesis of 5-minute journal.
Yeah, it actually came way earlier than that. So the 5-minute journal came in 2013. So when we moved.
Okay.
And we began working on it in late, I think 2011, 12. And it came out of actually, so another thing is, which is very important to connect, obviously, as we spoke about earlier, is that growing up, this, poor Russian immigrant kid, as you know, coming from USSR, all of us hope to achieve the American dream, right? And that's the reason why a lot of immigrants are very driven and want to be successful and want to drive BMWs and Porsches and Ferraris and Range Rovers and all that stuff. Very materialistic to a certain degree. I was as well. I felt, I want to be a millionaire. I want to drive a BMW and life will be set. What happened for us earlier on, because we made money so quickly, and we had the trifecta, meaning, we had money, we had a relationship, and the way we built our business, we had time. Think about, we're traveling the world in our first 3 years of our business as our business is growing. And we have like 2 employees, and our business is going from like 1 to 3 million second year to 5 million in the third year. That was our growth trajectory, and we're traveling the world. So of course it messed with our head. What I mean, it messed with our head with, like, Mimi got super depressed, right? I was like, I was pretty
Really?
stable. Yeah. Mimi got super depressed, like right away,
About what? About making all this money? I don't get it.
about losing purpose and meaning in life. Because if you
Because
no,
it became financial.
not just financial, I think if when you achieve, a lot of people dream in life to have, meeting love of your life partner, right? Being married, having money, having freedom. Imagine you achieve all those like right away. It kind of kicks you, and if you then have to face yourself, because if you are genuine and you're not attached, you start to see the things that you felt that were gonna make you so happy, and you're like, shit, like I'm the same person. Like now that I'm on this holiday, or I'm in this car, or I'm in this house, if you're truly honest with yourself and you're like, I'm still the same person, and what is meaning to me? What do I derive meaning to me? And in fact, what Mimi lost, and I'll still say she's still recovering from a very like long time, is that before, when she would work in customer service, she like in a bank or a waitress in a restaurant, she'd interact with people every day, like in the real person. Now that she's this like internet celebrity and an influencer, yes, a lot of people admire her, but she doesn't have that. Yes, a lot of people are commenting and liking and be like, you're the greatest, you're so beautiful, all that stuff. But you don't get that stuff in person. Yes, we can do events, and we'll do events, and she'll hug people or whatever, and she'll get a high for that. But it's still not a part of the day-to-day life. So I'll say there was a lot of soul searching that happened in that era. And ultimately, even with the business, what we've learned is like, we're very idealistic, right? Both Mimi and I, and that's why we're together. And what I mean by that is like, hey, how we make money and our purpose has to be tied together. And so we just felt detaching from the hair business, because like, hey, yes, we brought women happiness, and we're part of women's, them meeting other people and attracting other people and getting married and looking more beautiful and all that stuff. But to the core, I'm like, is this what I want to be doing in my life? Like selling hair? Like it wasn't really doing it for me. So, or for her. So that's what Intelligent Change was really born out of that idea of, Viktor Frankl, is a huge inspiration. Man's Search for Meaning, same thing, like Holocaust kind of survivor, just speaking about what is that purpose in humans' life, and to that meaning of helping people self-actualize on their journey and on ourselves in that moment. Because why, our logo, Intelligent Change, is like the sun kind of rays, and it's a triangle. People think it's Illuminati. It's not. It's more about the last pyramid of Maslow's hierarchy of needs is self-actualization. And that's what we've learned as we started achieving our kind of basic, safety needs, our psychological needs, our emotional needs. All of a sudden you're faced with that top need, which is to self-actualize yourself in this lifetime. And so that is the genesis story of the 5-Minute Journal and the Intelligent Change. And the 5-Minute Journal was really that first product to give the gift that we spoke about. Because one thing that has changed my life is changing my mindset around, most importantly, gratitude. When everything in my life was going upside down, as I shared with you today, is when I chose to, how can I be grateful for even in those hard moments. So when my father died, when I was, broke, a single mother, all that stuff, in this moment, what can I be grateful for? You might be thinking like, why would you, number one, want to be grateful in those moments? But gratitude allows you to see the hope in your situation and what you do have versus what you don't have. Because a lot of people are focused on what they don't have in their life, and that's why they're so unhappy. I don't have this partner. I don't have this money. I don't have this whatever. Well, at that moment, when I was even 17 and broke, what I realized is like, hey, I'm actually really grateful to be 17 and broke, because any 80-year-old, 90-year-old billionaire would trade places with me in the snap. Like they would love to be me right now.
You're absolutely right.
So
absolutely.
So I'm like, hey, like this. I'm so wealthy. And this literally takes a moment to snap out of it. So for me, that practice that Tony Robbins did introduce me of gratitude was I'm like, how can I give that gift to the world, and also how can I keep practicing that practice myself? Because I really do believe that if you can start your day with an uplifting way, and also end that day with an uplifting way, you can help shift your mindset to create your own reality. Because our brain has this part called the reticular activating system, RAS, which is once you give it what to focus on, it starts seeing more of that in the world. And if you start appreciating and saying thankful for what you have, and also start, imagining the good that's going to happen to you, your brain's going to start giving you that feedback and a reflection. And that's really was the story. And then we never thought we would sell, over a million copies.
What's interesting? What's interesting what you're saying to me in terms of gratitude and documenting gratitude, through this process in general, as you're telling me that, I have this thought about, I feel that children almost do this naturally. And I feel that not only children, but young, like teenagers and young adults, because when we're younger, we don't have this kind of weight of responsibility and weight of the real world and this like mass consumption of news and all of this stuff that kind of weighs us down. So I feel like it's almost natural in early life that people have this positivity and this optimistic outlook towards the future, and people I think are just happier in general when they're younger as opposed to when you get older. But I think that, to your point, this product that you've created with the 5-Minute Journal, it really does serve to kind of bring back and remind ourselves of that, of what it is that we're grateful for, almost to shift our mind back to kind of that vibrational state when we were younger. Does that make sense to you, what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure. But the way I described the 5-Minute Journal, and this was really also our intention, is it's a toothbrush for your mind. We brush our teeth every morning and night. And we've been doing it, some for 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, 60 years. It's not like, one day you're like, I've been brushing my teeth for 40 years. I think I can stop now. It's not
right.
It's not a habit you can stop, because the moment you stop, all the gingivitis, plaque, whatever will start growing, and it will take over your dental hygiene and teeth. And you're going to like smell yucky, and it's actually going to affect your actual health and well-being, and everything will deteriorate. For some reason, what we thought is like there is no tool like that for the mind. But at the same time, as you said, the current world that we live in is designed against us. It's just designed to help you think how you're not enough, and you need to buy this BMW, and you're not enough, buy this piece of clothing, and you're not enough, and it's always telling you, like, criticizing and tell you how you're not enough, because we live in this very market-driven consumer society, and also our brain is hijacked by negativity, and we have a negativity bias, meaning we pay attention more to the negative than to the positive, and it's there for our survival. The thing is, marketers and psychologists, who help these billion-dollar, trillion-dollar organizations learn how to hijack our mind. And so you need to have a practice that you do to be able to take control of your thoughts and patterns. And you may be thinking, like, as you said, we start out with a fairly optimistic point of view, and we turn into be this more critical, very maybe jaded type of people as we go through experience in life. And what I have learned, even through the hardships of my life, is that the way you shift that, because I'm very also at the same time simple in my way. I do not think at all that I'm special or I'm above that has allowed me to be where I am. All I have been able to do, there's many points in my life, as I said, when there was these kind of crossroads where I could have taken a different path and have a whole different life. But it's in that day-to-day choosing, and we choose each day, even if your life hasn't been going so well. once you have that awakening moment of like, hey, I'm gonna start appreciating what I have, even if my life isn't going so well right now. That is the moment where everything changes, that as I believe that it has for me. So it's more about maintaining this mental hygiene so at first it's going to be very hard when people begin to do a 5-minute journal. And they think, yes, maybe it's a silly idea. I don't have 3 things to be grateful for, and I don't have 3 things that will make today great. And before the evening portions of like highlights of the day, I have no highlights. Or before it was 3 amazing things, and that's why we actually reframed the question from 3 amazing things to highlights. So people are like, I have nothing amazing happening in my life. I'm like, okay, we'll simplify it a little for you. Highlights. What is like the high of your day that existed? And with enough time, once you use that muscle, you start seeing more of it. And that's the beautiful thing, is that's why we have a 6-month money back guarantee, because it takes you 6 months to do the journal. If you do it and then you don't feel better, I'll take your money back. I don't care, because I'm a true believer in that.
You mean you'll give the money back? That's what you meant, right?
Yeah. You give the money back for the purchase.
I think, look, I think it's what else is interesting about it is that it makes you accountable to yourself. So knowing that you have to go into the journal twice a day, you're actually paying attention. So the benefit isn't just in those moments when you're journaling. The actual benefits are throughout the day, because you remember that you have this responsibility to document what you're grateful for and to document the amazing things that happen to you during the day. So going through the day, knowing that, okay, you have that responsibility at the end of the day, you're actually paying attention. So now you're looking for those positive things, those things that you're grateful for and that are amazing. So I think it's, I think it's genius. Talk to me a little bit about the business side of it. So, you've sold going on to almost 2 million copies now since 2000. And I think you said you launched, when did you launch it? 2013 is when you started working on it.
Yeah, 2013 we launched. So we started working in like 2012.
Okay, so how did you, I understand how you generate kind of top of the funnel, traffic generation for Luxy. I get that through the YouTube channel. How did you do it for 5-minute journal? Like how are you getting buyers for that?
Well, I think same thing, Mimi was one of the earlier influencers on Instagram and YouTube. So when we launched, because we had Mimi's channel, we also then started her personal channel. So she had Mimi Ikonn channel. And then on there, she also had a very engaged following. And especially back in the day, like a decade ago on YouTube, it was a totally different game. Like in terms of the conversion and trust was just next level. Now there's so many influencers and there's so many people selling you stuff that people have become very jaded towards a lot of the stuff. So you have to, I still believe influencers like Valeria, and Mimi hold clout with their audience because how real they are and the people do trust them, different than even, let's say, some, Kardashians and things like that. And the reason I say that is because we've had Kardashians. I thought, the moment the Kardashians are going to talk about our product, we're going to make bank and they're going to sell so many products. And then that day came and went, and it didn't do much for us. So what I'm trying
the Kardashians featured, the Kardashians featured 5-minute journal in one of their
we're sold.
Content?
We're sold on Push.com. So Push and Courtney. Nice. Courtney's great, and she's promoted it. But what I'm just trying to say is that when you promote too many products over the years, it's gonna take a lot. So that influencer will have to mention the product probably like 5 times for their audience to be like, oh my gosh, she's actually really loving this stuff, and it's not just like a paid post. Then I think they take it seriously. But I think to answer your question is, for us, Mimi would make these videos, her morning routine and her night routine. Those videos got millions of views because she did the morning and night routine videos before they got popular. Mm-hmm. And then she would just feature it in her like favorites and her other kind of things throughout the day and on her Instagram and her feed and things like that. So that, I think Mimi was like the person to really kick off the first 1,000 fans. And of course I had some sort of a husband following as me and you do, right?
You're being modest. You have almost 200,000 followers on Instagram.
But still. And then so in regards to that I think what kicked it off. But we were also very fortunate that we met Tim Ferriss at a similar event like we just held, Intelligence Change Summit. My friend Jason Gary and I was throwing an event called Mastermind Talks in Toronto, and Tim Ferriss was the keynote speaker. And when we launched, we printed 1,000 copies, and out of those first 1,000 copies, I had a business partner at that time with Intelligent Change, UJ. He gifted Tim Ferriss the 5-minute journal, and he said, thank you so much. You helped inspire us. This is our Muse business, like a 4-hour workweek business that we're trying to create. And here's the 5-minute journal. And he was going through a rough time, and he's like, cool, I'll give this thing a shot. And it really helped him when he was going through a difficult time in his life. And then when he launched his podcast, he would talk about it and mention it a lot of times when the conversation would come about gratitude or overcoming difficulties. He would say, so he's been a customer for a very long time, and obviously he became like the Oprah of podcasting. He was like there before in a way to a certain degree. So that combination of Tim Ferriss and Mimi was our kind of initial push. But as you said, that did well, and the business was doing very well for many years. But as I spoke before, is that you can only take organic so far. And we did the same thing we did with Luxy Hair, where we just had 2 employees and customer service and whatever, operations assistant, and kind of did that for a very long time. But once, when we kind of started, and because Luxy Hair at some point plateaued and stayed that for a long time at a decent number. But as you said, to get it to sell to private equity is not interested in kind of 7-figure businesses. They want 8-figure plus, because it's not worth their time. If they're going to go through due diligence and all that stuff, it's going to be the same amount of time for them to do it for 8-9-figure business, same lawyer costs, all those other things. So that's why they need bigger deal sizes. So in that time when we had to scale Luxy Hair to 8-figure business, I learned so much in regards to that. You can only take organic so far. You have to put a proper team in place. You have to grow and scale it, and you have to invest into the business, which means for a certain time you may take a hit on margins and things like that. It may not be as profitable a business as lean as it is in those single kind of million digits that you speak about. And so that's when we as we're prior to selling the business, we figured out that we had some differences with our business partner, and we wanted to take it further, and Intelligent Change is the business that we want to kind of have for our life. And with Mimi, we bought out our business partner. And then, so since when we bought him out was 2019, late 2019. So I would say Intelligent Change, what you're really seeing now, and especially we're going to see in the next year, because you'll see a lot of more Intelligent Change in the next year, I promise you that, is more about that kind of us taking over that strategy and really starting to take that business to the next level.
I know you and I spoke briefly, I think, a little over a year ago, about like something where Valeria would be, I don't know, because I've seen you do it with a few influencers where I think you're creating like a journal that is somewhat like specific to an influencer, like you're kind of tailoring it, and then obviously it's then being shared with that influencer's audience. And you and I talked about, hi Alexa, and so you and I chatted about that. And it dropped off for me because it was honestly like no excuses, but I was in the middle of this like crazy move in immigration and stuff. So there was a lot of things that were occupying my mind, and there still are. But in any case, when you talk about this, I think back to the 2019 when Valeria did her meetup in London, and it was like our first meetup, and she had hundreds of people there. And obviously, like our scale's gone up since there. I can almost see, and I don't want to speak for Valeria, but I just want to plant the seed here on this podcast, and you and I can talk about it offline. But maybe there's some kind of an event where we go to whatever, we pick a city, and we go and we do an event where like there's a panel discussion where it's like Valeria, Mimi, yourself, maybe me, I don't know, we'll see, and maybe other potentially like-minded people. But even with that, I believe that event where we'd be putting this co-branded product, this co-branded 5-minute journal in the hands of the audience, and then all of the content that we could create from an event like that, both in long form and short form, to be deployed on everyone's social media. I think that might be really interesting, and it may be interesting from a business perspective in terms of like top line revenue, but I think it would be actually more interesting because I'm inspired by my conversation with you about doing things not only for the bottom line, doing things not only on the financial side, but doing it to do this positive thing, because I do believe in the product, and I do believe that, if we can present this to Valeria's audience in a more meaningful way, that'll affect really good change. So anyways, something for you and I to chat about offline.
No, I spoke to you about it before too, but I think that's exactly what we'll be doing this year. We have about 5+ launches coming in this coming year into Q1. We're going to be doing also, as you said, launch events that are both public and private, more for a bigger audience, let's say even up to 1,000 people, where you sell tickets and they get the product as well, or as well to more private, right, for influencers and things like that, to create more of that kind of community and things that are going on. I think I've seen it done before. Majuri is a brand out of Toronto, great brand. They're massive now. That was one of the strategies that I would say we spoke to. You met Majid as well at an Intelligent Change Summit, the co-founder.
I was just chatting with him recently on WhatsApp. Yeah,
yeah,
great
exactly.
guy.
So that was one of their kind of big pivotal moments, is how do they incorporate the business into not just be about them, but also incorporate other creators and things like that into the mix. And of course they've evolved since that, but I think with us as an Intelligent Change, we in a way see ourselves, now that we built up this this business side for us in regards to manufacturing, customer service, distribution that we're building out, like we might as well team up with other people, be able to help them plug in without having to build that up themselves. And as I've kind of shared with you, it's very with only kind of selective partners that we're doing it with. So it's not like we're opening up to everybody, but at the same time, it's very disruptive, where it's very profit sharing with the creator, and it's not where we're taking advantage at all. So that's what we're really excited about, because the publishing industry as a whole can have a little revamp, and there's a lot of opportunity in the space.
Yeah, no, I see it as when you and I spoke about it, I understood that it was exclusive. Like I understood that you're not making these calls in the like hundreds or even tens of calls. Like you're making these calls very sparingly and yeah. No, so I understood that, and again, like I slept on it, but I think you and I should definitely pick up that conversation. So I kind of understand where you're going. Like I see kind of the path. Obviously, look, you've had it's an incredible story, and the thing is when I do the math, I think you're only 30. How old are you now? You're in your mid-30s.
I just turned 36.
You're 36. So happy birthday! Happy birthday! So you're still a very young man, and there's still a lot of there's a lot of positive work that you're still doing, and I feel that it's because you and I come from we come from the same place. It was different times, but we come from the same place. So I especially feel this kind of connection to your story as it really reflects my own and a lot of the people that I know that that came up in that area. I guess I kind of feel like asking you, what would you feel are the keys? But I think like the keys to progress and success. But I feel like we really pulled it out of this conversation. I feel like we've had such immense value. I guess my question, just to to wrap things up, to be respectful for your time, like what would you leave people with? What would you leave people with that are potentially in in a rut? I understand about the gratitude. You have a tool for it to pull this gratitude out, but for young people or people in various aspects of their careers, people who are stuck, because being stuck, that's what I'm trying to get to. Like, how do you get people out of that feeling of stuck? Like how would you recommend for people to get out of that frame of mind? I
think most importantly, as I said before, is to stop playing victim. You're the only person, I posted this the other day, that the only person that's gonna come save you in your life is you. There's like, just stop hoping for this magical prince or princess or king, whatever that you want, or some lottery. You know, I know I used to play the lottery when I was poor too, and I would hope and dream, and it's a very nice fantasy to have about, you know, winning and what you're gonna do with that money. But the biggest bet you can make in your life is betting on yourself. And once you make that bet and you start taking responsibility for your life, things change. And then you also have to have a big enough dream that will excite you, that will get you moving. But understand, to get that dream is going to take time, and it's going to take persistence. And if you just are patient enough to start thinking in decades instead of days, and having a pill that's going to make you a success overnight, which is not going to happen, then you can start building yourself up. And that's really the best advice that I can really give, is stop playing victim, take responsibility for your life, create a dream that you're excited about, and go after it.
Alex, that's a great summary. Alex, I really want to thank you. You know, I really appreciate this, and I especially appreciate you, you know, contributing to my podcast, to doing this, because as you know, it's very new, and I feel that having having conversations like this, it gets me better at this new craft that I'm undertaking. This conversation with you makes me feel better that I'm doing something, that I'm kind of facing the fear of, you know, trying to create something like this and pushing it forward. So I do thank you for being on my podcast, and I look forward to the next time we chat. And thank you.
Thank you so much, Gary. Miami looks amazing. Okay. Nice and sunny.
Thanks, buddy. Well, we're waiting here for you. So anytime you've got hosts.
Perfect. Looking forward to it. Thank you so much, Gary.